everyone. This is episode 6 of Life in Sport, and I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by Brendan Moran, sports photographer, for this episode. Brendan, you're very welcome to Life in Sport.
Good morning, Evanne. Thanks for having me.
Cool. I'm delighted to have you, Brendan. And we're 6 weeks in and we've had a huge variety of jobs in sport. And, one of the things that people were really interested in, the feedback that I got, was in sports photography, because your job is one of the ones where you get closest to the action of anybody, even the coaches sometimes. I'm sure you feel like it's a privilege.
It's a huge privilege. Come here, lots of jobs are people give out about whatever, there's always issues with jobs, but you have to think it's the front seat for free to an extent. And we a bit like the players and teams themselves, we only have one chance. We don't have a replay. We can't go, hey, what happened over there? Can we see? We have to get it. We can't have second chances. We can't rely on replays. As I said, they say if you see it in the camera, it means you've missed it. So therefore, we actually don't even see a lot of what we take until we see the pictures. So while we might see things going on and somebody scored a point or reacted to something or whatever, you kind of go, oh yeah, but I'll have a look at that now to see what it actually looked like. So we don't even know what it looked like when we're taking it.
I'm always so curious to know, if you're in Croke Park, for example, and you decide to lie down behind one goal, you see all the photographers and they're crouched down in the corner or whatever. And something happens at the other end. Are you going, oh, I picked the wrong end? How do you decide where to go? Do you base it on who you think is going to win the match?
Yeah, you would there'd be probably a few things we do in that you try and stack the odds in your favor. You kind of try and create your own luck. Now, a lot of it comes from experience. Yeah. And you'd have a bit of homework done on the event. So you know your event, who's playing, who's relevant, new coach, that fella suspended or whatever. In terms of match situation, it would depend on the match. We would work as a team quite a lot in Sportsfile. So there'd be a bit of a buddy system. So if you cover that corner, I'll cover this corner, and then I'll do this bit, and then you do that bit and all that. And there are times you go, yeah, I'm at the wrong end. You could spend, I was at a match recently and spent 20 minutes and the team never came into my half the field.
Yeah.
And you're kind of going, well, this is great, but you basically have to get what's in your quadrant of the field or your half the field and keep your eyes open. And it's proven very difficult without supporters, because some of the best pictures can sometimes be you could be at a match in Aviva and Ireland would score a try down the far end, but the reaction of the supporters would actually make the photograph. So and sometimes the players would turn away from the fact, they would turn back to their own teammates. So sometimes, even if you're at the wrong end, you can get a far better picture with a bit of context and the supporters cheering and all that, which the photographers at that end can't see. They're only looking at the players. So it can work both ways. It just depends on the event, and you have to be smart about it.
I'd say this year, and well, the last 12 to 15 months, I'm sure you've missed this. We'll talk about that again, because we were going to look at some photographs over the last little while as well, which we're going to notice the difference between having fans and not having fans. But before we get into that, can I just ask you about your own background in sport, Brendan? Obviously, you photograph sport for a living. You kind of need to know. You need to know the feel of sport to be a sports photographer. So what's your background like? What were you into when you were younger? And were you always going around with a camera, or is that something that kind of developed later on?
Well, I suppose my dad would have hoped I'd be a Kerry footballer, but that didn't really work out.
The amount of dads in Kerry that hope that for their sons, though, in fairness.
Yeah, I know. You just joined the queue. Now, I would have played a bit of hurling in school and a bit of football, but my dad was a goalkeeper in the day. But that, he would have given me my love of sport. And I suppose the fact that he would have been a steward in one of the local pitches there in Osselsack Park, and he still is, he would have brought me along, and then I would have kind of got an interest in it. And then there was another young fella, young at the time, and who's now a good mate of mine, Kerry Kennelly from Kerry's Eye. I would have looked at him and gone, that's pretty cool. What's he doing there? What's going on there? And then I would have picked up a camera when I was 12 or 13, and I would have gone to matches. And I wasn't obviously good enough to play, but this was nearly the next best thing, because you'd be interacting with players and you'd be at the side of the field, and you see things other people don't see. And And it was the love of sport. Like I would have gone off to schools matches, and I would have, in fairness to the local papers, they would have, like I had my first picture published in a newspaper at 14. So they would have been very encouraging. Like, the late Pádraig Kennelly, who's a great newspaper man, when I cycled down with Prince from a schools game, Tralee CBS, he was like, "So what happened in the game?" And I'm like, so there was an element that I had to give him a bit of a match report. So one or two lads I know probably got a glowing report because I couldn't necessarily name the whole team. But it kind of started out like that, and there's just a bug about it, and there's a real, like, as I matured over the years and got older, there's definitely a privilege about witnessing history. Like, people hang pictures up in their house, on their wall. When they look at the picture, to go, "Oh, do you remember that?" And it might lead to another memory. It might be Donegal winning the All-Ireland. And then the people that look at the picture go, "Oh, do you remember? Yeah, we were in the pub afterwards, or we traveled down, or we had." And so it evokes a lot of memories. And I find that as a huge privilege to be able to take people to places that they remember as good, particularly in sport. Because you don't necessarily hang an article on the wall, or, a TV, they have stuff on DVD, but they don't see it. But when they walk past the picture, and the fact that everybody has phones now and they're big into their taking pictures, like, it's just, even this year is just going to be hugely important. 50 years time and 100 years time, people going, "Why are all the people wearing masks? Why is there no big All-Ireland
Why is
final?"
there no one there? Yeah,
Like 130 odd years of All-Ireland finals, and this is the first one without people.
I know, it's mad. Like, when you think about it, when you stop to think about it, and even being in Croke Park on those All-Ireland final days and nights, like the Camogie night was bizarre, but there was something magical about it. Even though it was completely empty, it wasn't empty of soul. Like, it was still there, and it was captured in a lot of those photographs.
Even the evening, like the nighttime games,
Yes.
It's like there's the floodlights give a bit of glamour or something to it, than just an overcast day. And something's going on that's special, but you're still kind of going, it's still a bit weird.
Yeah, well, no, don't get me wrong. Can't wait to get the fans back in. Can't wait to get back in ourselves again. So God, it sounds like a bit of a vocation then. If you were 12 when you picked up a camera, 14 when you first got a photograph published in the paper, that probably gave you a bit of hunger then to keep going. Like, you were obviously still in school. So did you just plow on with it while you were in school? And then did you study photography, or like, what did you do after school then?
I kind of was kind of the Tralee photographer for a local paper in Killarney for a couple of years. So every weekend I would have cycled up to do the park or Tralee Dynamos, and then gone into a match out in Blennerville or St. Pat's, and I just cycled around the town covering matches. And they were good enough to me. The editor there at the time, the sports editor, John O'Mahony, was good enough to trust me. Like, fella from 16 that you've never met rings up, shows a few pictures. Yeah, he'll be good enough, And my first match was in Croke Park, was around 92-ish, 90. It was a league semi-final. I can't remember exactly the year, but so
Geez, you were young then, 92.
Yeah, this was a big deal for me, coming up with my dad, and he went up into the stand, and I went in with my photographer's pass, thinking I was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And
class.
Of course, you do make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I did make a big gaffe that day that I would never happen again, because the local paper always wants a team photograph, and I forgot to put film in that camera. So I had loads of action pictures, but I had no team photograph. But look, it was a learning experience, and I haven't missed it again. But there was definitely a bug about it, and I still was in school and I studied, but then I became a bit known, with my classmates and stuff. Gone after the match. So they'd gone after the match to support the team. Yes, and I'd be going. I wouldn't have to pay the $5 necessarily to get on the bus, because I'd be going as the school reporter or whatever. But it became then a thing where you kind of dream about Olympics, and you dream about Champions League, and you dream about all these big things going. It'd be so cool. Look at all these. And while I'd be watching events, and I'd be reading photography magazines, and some of the people that I would have looked up to then now would be friends of mine, which is a mad situation. And now I try to, with a lot of young people that are involved in it now, I try to help them along, because lots of people help me, and I would try and give them the benefit of my experience, because there's loads of mistakes you make, but if you get more information off somebody that's been through it, it just helps avoid those mistakes.
Yeah.
Mistakes can be a good thing, but I do see, I like seeing progression in some of the younger staff in Sportsfile. There's a great joy in it, because I'm not going to go on forever, but it's nice to see different styles and how people can blossom, and you can see they have skill and they have talent, and it's good to bring it out of them a bit more and encourage them and things like that. So that's
lovely. I love to hear that, because it's not like, you're not putting the ladder back down for other younger photographers. Because like you say, you're not going to go on forever, and you mightn't want to go on forever crawling on the ground in Croke Park getting the best photograph if you've got bad knees 20 years time.
And like I would have played in golf when I was a kid, so my knees wouldn't be great. But I it is such a privileged life that, and you do like to encourage people, but it's I suppose you can't take it for granted. You have to kind of go, how lucky am I? And I want to help other people, and like witnessing the stuff all the time. Now, I like to outsmart them. Like, they're full of enthusiasm. They're probably fitter than me, but then I've got experience. So I like even that. The challenge now is, it used to be when I was younger, beat the old guys. Now the challenge is outsmart the young guys.
Yeah.
And so it's never a complacency. It's just I like a challenge, and it's just a different challenge. And
it's also experience. You probably know every nook and cranny of every stadium in Ireland and every field.
Yeah, but there's new stadia coming along the whole time.
True.
And that's like last year, the book we do Season Sundays, like we've done it for like 27 years or whatever. I think last year's will be the most historic, because we went to venues, like we went to Kilcar and Donegal, and there's brilliant views of
it's beautiful pitch,
of sheep and the field and the Atlantic. And so we actually went to games, like a lot of, it was a team effort again. Like a lot of our photographers traveled quite a lot. Like we did East Belfast, the A's first match, which was like, I don't know, it was a junior South Down League or whatever it was. We went picking out scenic venues to try and, the life still goes on, and it's important. And like lads had pictures of fellas getting massage with cows in the background or horses in the background, and
there were some great photographs. And they're different, and like you say, in 100 years time people will look back and go, where's the fans? Like, this is mad.
And so you might go to the venue 100 times, but you're still always kind of trying to keep an eye out for somebody hasn't seen something. We're not reinventing the wheel, but I would have did the All-Ireland final in a certain way last year. Like, I didn't photograph the action, but I was like, walking around the concourses, and it was dark and it was a bit eerie, and things like that, is a good challenge to me, because going, look, Dublin win another All-Ireland. As a Kerry fella, I don't particularly want to see it, but it led me to do, I had I suppose I had the freedom, because we work as a team. There was a lot of lads on the pitch that day. It gave me the freedom to wander around and find something else, and like
and to think outside the box.
One of the pictures you see later is essentially from Hill 16. Like, man scores goal in All-Ireland final, and Hill 16
no one there,
like a graveyard. So it's
let's have a look at some. Let's have a look at some of the photographs then. So, like, if you share your screen, and we'll go through a few things. You've picked out a few, I've picked out a few, and like, it's so hard. Like, do you have a most memorable photo, or is that just impossible?
That's pretty impossible. Because it's just, every picture is a favorite for some reason or another.
I know.
Like, what I have a favorite picture this week, I might have another favorite picture next. There are some here now that would be kind of all-time greats, I suppose.
I love this one. This is East Kerry, and this is East Kerry?
Yeah, this is East Kerry, yeah.
So this is one of the ones that we were talking about earlier, with the cows in the background. Like, this is during club championship, no dressing rooms allowed. And I remember this one, it was in one of the papers, wasn't it?
I was down doing, I think I did a weekend of games in Kerry that weekend. Like, I did the Legion that day. I think this was possibly my third game of the day. I had done, I think, Cairns O'Reilly's and Legion. Then I did a soccer match with Killarney Celtic, and this was the evening game. And I had known there was a graveyard, but I didn't really know how to approach it. And you go sometimes along to a venue with preconceived ideas, and it was just a miserable evening. And because David Clifford, I think it was his first game back, because I think he'd been suspended for a previous game. So the job was get a picture of David Clifford, an inter-county player playing for his club. And it didn't really work for me in the first half, and that he kept turning the wrong way, and he kept passing it away, or they were avoiding him, and I'm like going, I'm not getting any picture of this. And it's 7 o'clock on Saturday.
He was treble marked.
Yeah, and I'm kind of going, this isn't really working. How am I going to get a picture of this? And I sure I'll wait till. And at halftime, I went to send a few pictures in the stand, and I just happened to peek over the small little stand in the stall there, and they were hanging around and giving their team talk, and the graveyard was behind it. And then I thought, this could be quite, like, to an extent, I might read into it a little bit more, but like, to me, there's an element of the GA is definitely life and death. In that small communities around Ireland, there are so many people that give their life to the GA, and where better to be buried than next door to the football field, so there's a little bit of that in it, but it's even the way the lads are like sitting around. Darren Moynihan over there has a smile on his face. They're thinking about the tactics. Lads are stretching. They're having a few Jaffa cakes. They're just not allowed into the dressing rooms as per regulation. And Dave Clifford there's in the middle giving the team talk, and it's a real Irish picture.
It is, and it's also a real pandemic picture as well, because obviously they weren't allowed into the dressing room. But if you can imagine, like club matches, when you go to club matches, the crowd, they're some of the most passionate, crowds that you'll come across when you go to local matches. There's no way a team would be able to hang around behind the stand at halftime in a game if there was any fans there. There's so many elements. You're looking at it going, how does this work? Another one that for the ages, when you look back on it and think,
and particularly when teams are very secretive about, we can't let someone get one over on us. You wouldn't have a team talk out in the open because somebody might be listening.
And there's another field in the background as well beyond the graveyard.
That's obviously part of the club as well. But it's just it was a good picture at the time, and it's definitely a bit of a reflection on how things were in Ireland. Like we were lucky to have the GA back at the time.
That's the other side of it.
But certainly streaming, and you've people looking in over the wall on the far side of the field and things like that. Like, people still try to see matches, even though they were streamed and all that. And I think that was a good thing for people. And hopefully this year vaccinated people will be able to go to matches. And certainly if some of the elderly population came back to club matches, it'd be a brilliant reward for them having sacrificed last year, and they say, like, with local matches, everybody knows everybody there. So that there's, you can, people's faults and their good things, and you kind of, even the commentary you listen from the locals on the sideline can be far more interesting than, anything that could be broadcast.
Yeah, true. Oh my God, true. Yeah, definitely. Plow on to the next one. So, I love this one. Yeah. 2014. Yeah,
2014 Kerry beat Donegal. And look, come here, there's a bit of sometimes a myth about dressing rooms that, they must be like Party Central or a big nightclub or whatever. That's not necessarily true. But I was lucky enough here that Eamon Fitzmaurice, after the game, invited me in to do some pictures for the players. And I would have known a lot of them players anyway, Gooch and Kieran Donaghy and Mark O'Shea and fellas like that. And so to be brought in, and it was really interesting to see. Like, I've heard quotes from the likes of Tommy Walsh, the Kilkenny hurler, and other players that say the best thing about winning in Ireland is the 5 minutes in the dressing room after the match with everybody that trained, everybody that was on the panel, the backroom staff, because after about 5 minutes, there's fellas go for press, there's drug testing, there's somebody has to meet a family member, and then they get on the bus and they go back to the function, and they're never together ever again. No matter how many are there, there's always somebody missing. And Tommy Walsh said he would give up like All-Ireland medals to recreate that 5 minutes. So to be in there as a Kerry fella, it was a huge privilege. And look, we took pictures of the lads celebrating and whatever, but it was brilliant just to be in there and to see what went on, because I'll never make it as a player. Well past it now, but
you never know, you might get a call up.
Geez, it wouldn't be a bad day for Kerry football if I'm playing. But it was a brilliant insight, and it extends the privilege that we see. As I said, like the likes of you mightn't be allowed in, or other people mightn't be allowed in, and Eamon had that trust. Like, I would have known him as a player, and he had that trust in me that I wouldn't necessarily, you know, we had an agreement that the pictures be for them and them only, and in due time we released one or two with their permission, and even the fact that Barry John is taking a selfie, like that's the modern player.
I know, it's brilliant photograph. There's just, you can feel the joy, and just it's really private as well. Like you can feel that it's a private moment. You nearly feel like you're, I don't know, spying on them or something. It's just, there's that feeling to it.
Well, I like the observational, aspect to it. Like, I don't know what Barry's John picture ever turned out like, but look, it's not.
His finger is probably covering I don't think he's going to threaten you for your job.
No,
but do managers give you that opportunity very often? Like, I presume that was kind of it doesn't happen very often.
It depends. It depends. You have to have relationships, and that's an important part of it. But like, and like most people, most people in journalism and sport are not in it to make £1 million, because you never will.
No,
they're in it for the love of it. And money isn't everything either. There's so much. We see so many things, and we meet so many people, and we travel so many places, that it's a huge privilege.
It's a huge privilege. Yeah.
The likes of this would be, like, not every manager would do it, and even some managers that would trust you, they'd still be a bit wary, or they might think of it, but Eamon just had the foresight to go, come here, like, it was just out in the field. It wasn't prearranged. He just says, would you mind coming in? And okay, you have to get clearance and this, that, and the other. But like, because at the end of the day, the dressing room is the county board.
Yeah.
That's their sanctuary. And, so I'd be well enough known in a number of counties that you might get invited in. And you wouldn't necessarily go after it. But if they invite you, you take it as a privilege and an honor to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's hard, it's hard to get past a lot of the ropes in Croke Park now as well. And that's even a few years ago again. Like, everything is sectioned off. So it's a special,
the nature of the game, probably. They can't have people wandering.
Of course. Yeah.
But it's as I said, it's definitely one of the perks of being a photographer, in that you do see sometimes a little bit more than the rest of the media.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Pull up the next one there. So I think we have a couple of we need a trigger warning for Mayo here for the next couple, I think. But in fairness, because of the emotion that emanates from Mayo fans and Mayo players when they lose, you must have a bank of magical photographs. Not magical, but just really soulful. Like, look at the sky even, and the glare coming through onto the lads.
Mayo's kind of journey the last 10 years it reminds me a lot of Munster's journey. Munster had a lot of heartbreak
in the early noughties,
and like, I would have been on most of them. Like, I think it was the year 2000, I was at every match, home and away. They won in Welford Road and a few places, and heartbreaking to see them losing the final. And I think Mayo will get there eventually, and I really hope I'm there to see the day, because I just think it will be such a historic day in Irish sport for Mayo, because they're like everybody's second favourite team. And look, Mayo people mightn't take nice to that, but you definitely want to see, they've worked so hard, they've put so much into it, and you don't always get what you deserve in sport, but definitely you do hope that they would be good enough one day to beat whoever's in front of them and win it, because it would be just, as I said, it would be a hugely historic day in Irish sport, and particularly in GA sport.
Do you ever feel, when you're photographing something like that and the pain is etched on their faces? We can't see their faces here, but we'll see Aidan O'Shea in a minute. Do you ever feel like when you're that close and you're capturing the pain?
Yeah,
do you ever feel bad? Like, do you ever feel like, oh God, I'm too close here, I need to step away?
I would have had a discussion with my boss Ray about the picture of Aidan, and
bring it up there so we can see it when we're talking about
like it. It's like, okay, I was kind of, as I said, the day of the All-Ireland, I was kind of had a bit of a loose role. And I didn't set out to take this picture, but I was in such a position that it just, I'd taken a few people before that, and it was kind of going, is there something in this? There could be something. And loads of players walked off with their head down, and there's no picture in it. And they just happened to glance up, and it's just a fleeting moment. It's one frame. It's only, and it's like, I know he's not looking at me because he can't see me because I'm probably in the dark. But it's definitely, there's an eye contact there and there's the trophy and the bit of silver and Dublin, and it's just
yeah, it's a fabulous picture. And this was last year. We should tell people, just in case, this is Colin Basquella's lift and the Sam Maguire's last year, so there were no fans.
right.
And like that might have been the reason Aidan looked up. If there were fans there, you just want to get off the field, you know, you just want to get out
like,
under the tunnel.
I could imagine, look, if it was me, you'd want to have a look up, see what's going on, you know, but it's just, it's a brilliant picture, you know, like you say so myself, but I would you definitely feel things for players and you go like, poor guy, but you have to still record it. Now, you can record it and you can debate afterwards whether it should be published or not. That's a different kettle of fish, but if you don't record it, it can never be published.
Was that published anywhere?
That got used quite heavily in the week after it. You know, just again, a lot of times you go to All Ireland finals and there's hundreds of pictures, and you're at the end of the day, you're trying to. Certainly, I would be trying to take a picture that sums up the whole day, or try and have a standalone iconic picture that if somebody looked at, going, yeah, they understand what's going on. Because like we take hundreds of thousands of pictures on, like we might take 50,000 pictures on Ireland final day, and you're trying to go, right, how many of them are going to stand the test of time? Like compared to years ago, we didn't take as many, but technology and digital cameras and this, that, and the other. Yeah,
you're not dealing with film now. You're dealing with like digital stuff.
So it's you can get far more, but there's still a skill of capturing the one split second, you know.
That's a fantastic picture. I actually do remember it being published afterwards, but like that now, you obviously sat down with Ray and decided whether or not to release it, did you? Or
like it's because you'd know Aidan, and I would have worked with him in the past for commercial stuff and that, and you do. I felt bad. Like, you know, it's human nature. You can't. You'd want to be fairly emotionless now, not to feel bad about somebody that loses, or even like you'd be happy for the people that win and you'd be sad for people that lose, because the J is quite local, and certainly sports athletes in Ireland, you know, you run into them time and again, you know, and you do feel something for them and you do want the best for them, but you know, they play the game, they know the risks of winning and losing. That's why they do it. Sure, if everybody won, nobody wins really. And
there's no joy.
I think when Mayo eventually do it, it'll mean so much to them. Like, you know, to be an All Ireland medalist in Mayo would be a great thing for them, you know. But look,
and you know what? I wouldn't have wanted them to win during a pandemic, because they wouldn't have got to celebrate with the best fans in the country. So
you could imagine you could imagine the atmosphere when Mayo do win it.
Oh yeah,
like,
we'll all just head over there for the crack.
Yeah, and
step on the bandwagon.
Mayo will just have to take the week off. You know.
Oh yeah, shut the county down.
Have to shut down. So you do hope that they can celebrate it properly when it does happen.
I think the next one is Dean Rock's goal, is it? I think it's the same day. This is.
There's a bit of eeriness about this. I kind of set out to try and show an All Ireland final day with nobody there, which, you know, and do a bit of a picture story on it so that it's there. It wasn't there. I wasn't doing it necessarily to get it in the paper the next day. It was more for history.
Yeah.
And I happened to be up there. The throw-in went in, and you know, Dublin scored a goal after 13 seconds. And you can kind of see Dean down there.
You can see the ball. Yeah.
The goalkeeper, David Clark. But the fact that I'm on Hill 16, like that place would have been heaving.
It would have been
if
electric.
Dublin scored a goal in an All Ireland final.
After 13 seconds.
It's, you know, the night time adds a bit of the eeriness to it. It's, you know, and like it was just such an eerie day. It's great in lots of ways, and I haven't even watched the All Ireland final since, so I couldn't tell you what happened in the game. You know, I just haven't got around to it, but it just kind of bypassed me. But you know, I'll watch it in, you know, reeling in the years in 20 years time or whatever. And so did that happen? And did that happen? But to me, it wasn't, because of the year that was in it. It wasn't important for me to photograph, in my opinion, what was on the pitch. It was important that somebody recorded the historical nature of it and the fact that it was an All Ireland in a pandemic.
So important. I'm actually struck by the colours here, and I know it's really, you know, it's dark obviously, and it's quite a dull, because there's nobody there, you're seeing all this grey concrete. But do you ever, or do people, because, you know, Instagram now, you just don't know what's real and what's not, and that's fine because it's Instagram, it's not, you know, they're not documenting history. But do you touch up your photographs, or like, do you ever have to do anything to them after you take a photograph? How much touching up do professional photographers do?
Generally, not a lot. We would have a fairly strict policy on pictures that we send to the newspapers, that they wouldn't be touched up. You might add a bit of contrast to it, or you might,
deepen the black or something.
Deepen the black, or if it's a bit magenta look, you might change the color balance just to match what you're supposed to see with the naked eye. Things like that. But like press photography by its nature, there shouldn't be any altering of the pictures. They should be as you see it. Now, people could say, well, look, you didn't look left there, so you cut out something that was on the left. Well, you can't have 360 degree on everything.
Yeah.
But as a rule, no, you can't, because then it just, if you lose the trust and you lose what's that word?
Integrity.
Integrity, yeah, and that it's very hard to get it back.
Yeah.
Therefore,
plus you're literally documenting history, and that you're exactly not doing that if you're touching up photographs.
There's pictures I had taken over the years and hurling and things like that, and you go, there's a broken hurley or there's a ball in a certain place, and you could Photoshop it in, but sure, where's the joy in that?
I know.
The skill is going, this is exactly what happened, and that, television has got on to slow motion and things like that, so it's now easier for people maybe to realize that, yes, these are the things that do happen. The ball hits a fella's face, or, particularly the way the cameraman, and they shoot, the hurling, you see the kind of slow motion stuff and the stuff you use for montages and things, where the two hurleys clatter, or a man catches a sliotar or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the type of stuff we see all the time. And it's very hard to see it on a live match day. So if we start cheating and we lose that trust, then there's no point in doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. I'm glad I asked you that, though, because people will probably wonder sometimes.
Yeah, look, there's an element people kind of going around. You can go around Photoshop and everything.
Yeah, exactly, and fix it up and fix it in the edit.
You can
fix it in post.
Term.
Yeah, it's totally different. Yeah. It's not like you're doing advertising. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, or if you are doing advertising or certain elements of commercial photography, it can be changed because you're trying to sell something. You're not presenting it as it should be. But as a general rule, we try and get it right in camera.
Fire on the next one then.
What have we got next?
Hey.
An interesting week, and one of the reasons I do like this picture is because you've got a couple of tricolours in it, and I'd say there wouldn't be too many tricolours flying in Portrush at any time. But I think, in fairness, the week that was in it, I think everybody was on Shane's side that week. You had a lot of Americans, over, and I think it was a remarkable week. Golf photography is tough. Physically tough, because you possibly walk 17, 20, 25 kilometers a day carrying about 40 kilos of gear. And
you never know where the shot is going to come from. Well, unless you're on the last day of that particular championship, which obviously was, it was only one man to follow, but I can imagine.
Well, the trick about this picture is I only followed Shane for the first 8 holes, and then I left and I went to the 18th green to get a position.
Okay.
So I didn't follow.
Which is another thing you have to do on a day like that. Yeah, because if you don't have your position.
I had a colleague there, Ramsey Cardy, and he essentially followed him. He picked him up then, because we kind of did a bit of a buddy system, that I followed him for 8, so we had kind of early stuff for websites. And then Ramsey picked him up then. And we were kind of, okay, we'll see how Shane's going. And, I could always abandon the 18th if things didn't start going well. And, Ramsey might pick up the leader at that stage. But when it got to kind of, you could hear them on 16 down the far end of the 18th. You could hear, and you're kind of going, he's quid's in now, So it was a question of then kind of thinking, okay, what's, you're thinking of photographing him with the claret jug and his family and this, that, and the other. And it was just when he came through the ropes there, there would be a sequence of frames of this, and he had to come through the ropes with his caddy and the cameraman there. And you just felt a great sense of joy that, normally on an 18th, it's racked with tension for a big man, a big one of the majors, and he could just enjoy the whole thing.
When he walked down, when they walked down together towards the 18th, I've never seen anything like it, because, like you say, normally elite athletes like that, they don't let themselves bask in the joy before it's over the line. But he knew, I think he knew I have to soak this up. This is unbelievably special. And
Yeah,
because he soaked it up, people just fed off it. And it just got even more, I'm getting goosebumps now. It got even more powerful because you could see that
yeah.
he was soaking it up and Bo was soaking it up and they were laughing and joking. And
And all the fans could come in from behind. So as
yeah,
you
and
said, they're
follow
all running
along.
down with this
Yeah, yeah, that was
enthusiasm. And
brilliant.
like he'd played his second shot at this stage, so he was
Yeah,
really only a couple of putts. So geez, how
yeah,
wrong could that go? You know.
yeah.
And I think that's, you know, I'd say most golfers would never experience that in their lifetime. You know,
I
so to be able to
know.
walk down the 18
I think that's why he knew, though. I think that's why he let himself bask in it,
and you're in your
because
home
it's once in a
country and
lifetime.
everybody
Yeah,
everybody on the island is going, go on, Shane, you know.
yeah,
And I just, and like, as well as that, he's such a regular bloke
yeah,
and a nice man. He's sponsoring Offaly at the moment. You know, he's just a down to earth guy. And I think people love, you know, the bit of every man, you know, and
yeah,
that he won the Irish Open as an amateur. He's worked hard to get where he is, you know, but he still has home roots, you know, his dad,
yeah,
Offaly football, you'd see him at the Offaly matches or
yeah.
whatever. He might, like he was at the Irish Open earlier that year and he nipped down, like that was in Clare, I think, and he nipped down to
That's right. Yeah,
the Gaelic grounds that evening to take in a match because
yeah.
I was at it and I had been at the golf, you know,
Like
so it was kind of
away.
like
Yeah.
he comes down and sits in and take, you know, so he's still just a nice bloke, and
Yeah.
that's where you kind of get a huge kind of there'd be a sense of pride in it because he's Irish, but also you kind of go, you'd be pleased for the man, you know,
Mm.
and that's
Oh,
the
he's
good
good
side of
people. Yeah,
sport.
he's good people. It's a
Yeah.
great photograph. Fire on the next one there. I can't remember what's next. Ah, yeah. Look, here's more
Hockey.
joy. And like, oh, this. So this was the 2019. This was the qualifying for the Olympics photo, wasn't it? The
Yeah,
against
yeah,
Canada
yeah.
after the
They
shootout,
they
which
played 2 nights, and the
in
first night
itself,
was
yeah, it was a
horrendous.
washout. Yeah, we were on
Uh,
air. We had to come off early because it was basically a puddle under our feet.
yeah, the corner I was sitting in that corner where you were
Yeah, it
based,
was
and it was
mental.
just like a flood. You
It
know,
was
I
a
think there
river.
was even
Yeah,
somebody even said to me, I think there was a rumor that the game could get postponed or stopped
stopped. It
because
was nearly getting
of
stopped. Yeah, yeah,
water.
yeah.
But then,
This photo is just unbridled joy, isn't it?
yeah, like you know, they had such a heartbreak for the previous ones, and
Yeah,
even the men had a heartbreak recently to that where wasn't there a penalty goal or something they got turned
yeah,
over on, and just to see them, you know, like I've been photographing the hockey girls for 15 or 20 years now, and you know I would have seen a lot of them progress. Like
yeah.
Shirley McKay, like was I don't know how many caps the woman has, but like you know it was good to see a lot of these finally get to the Olympics because the Olympics is essentially the elite of the elite. There's only
Yeah, yeah.
16
And
teams.
really they should have got to Rio, they were cruelly
Yeah,
denied. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But that was in Canada, wasn't it? That game or something.
This game.
No,
This
the
game was
game when
against
they,
Canada. Oh, sorry, the other shootout.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry, sorry,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't
remember
remember.
but it was just and it was just brilliant to witness. It was a great occasion in Energy Park there in Donnybrook. You know, the fact that they could turn it into a hockey pitch, you great
Yeah. It was
atmosphere.
full. It was a sellout as
It
well,
was
which
nighttime. It was a Sunday
yeah,
night. It was primetime television,
yeah.
and you were just delighted for them. Like you kind of do at that stage. You're kind of when you're watching the Sean penalty shoot, you're going, "Just I hope they don't get beaten again." Like
I know.
you really do, but you have to keep your wits about you.
Do you get the best photographs when your subjects are completely unaware that you're taking a photograph? Is that like when you get the
Absolutely.
best photos? Yeah.
Oh yeah, like and in fairness, um, like I would much prefer to be kind of a candid observer to it, because you definitely get when they're aware of the camera, and you do see it in professional sport that they're kind of sometimes they act up to the camera. I'm
Mm.
not a big fan of that. I would much
No.
rather see the natural emotion of the people because that's what's real. You know, you can see how much it means them. You know, shouting, bulging eyes, they're like all happy. Like that's a great thing for them even to remember in 50 years time or 30 years time or 20 years time. Like we've had letters from people from players, you know, when we've done the season Sundays, they might have got the book for Christmas and then one of them would say, you know, I read that book, I saw that book Christmas and I looked at the picture myself and the feeling I got I actually went out for a run that day, you know, because I wanted to do better. Like as I said,
Yeah.
one of that particular instance was Jarlath Burns when I think Armagh beat Down in the Ulster Championship in I don't know, around the 2000s or early 2000s. And like, he went out training on Christmas Day because he wanted to replicate that feeling next
Get
summer,
the edge.
you
Yeah.
know, and it's just that's what, as I said, that's what's brilliant about the pictures. It's that
Yeah.
it records like some organizations, some people think photographers are a bit of a nuisance, but like we are quite important, you know, even, okay, we would say we're important, but like, just for the history, you know, it's, and it's, players will always come back to you looking for pictures, you know,
Yeah.
because there's no, like, now they're probably lucky in some ways that they have professionals photographing them, so the pictures will be fairly decent
good.
quality,
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
know.
Yeah,
But
it's funny, like I think all media are kind of a nuisance to a lot of, you know, particularly professional setups, you know, all
yeah,
media.
but then again, like, some of that is a perception thing, in that
Yeah.
lots of athletes need a distraction from the monotony of training, you know, and they like engaging, or they're outgoing people. Like, you're going to have, like, look, players like any part of the population, there's going to be percentages that are introvert and extrovert, you know, and some like the crack and like the banter and like being distracted, and maybe are looking at a career in media in the future or whatever, and others aren't, and that's just the nature of it. But you know, you do see some teams just having a blanket ban and treating athletes like they're children, you know, and I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, because, like, at the end of the day, most of them are well educated, they're smart people. So look, they know themselves what their limits are, and what, as I said, like, there are lots of high profile players that have never done an interview, and that's fine, you know, and other ones are doing. But like, I think you have to trust people, because if, how are you going to trust them on the field to make correct decisions if you can't trust them how to speak?
How to speak and what to say. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
As much as I'd love to look at this photo all day, moving on to the next one there. Conscious of time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this photograph is like,
yeah,
gut wrenching.
Yeah, there's Seamus's teeth. And like, I've spoken to him about it since, you know, and he's fine. But it does definitely give an instance to, like, GA players, you know, like, now, in fairness, it was an accidental challenge.
How did you catch that though? Like that moment where they just shatter out of his mouth.
Well, to be honest
with
you,
was it a fluke? I admit it. Was it a fluke?
Well, look, the more you practice, the luckier you get.
That's true.
But when I saw the picture first, I didn't really.
Wow.
I probably didn't really examine it quickly enough on the side of the pitch.
Yeah.
I just went, I thought that was a bit of saliva or something. And it was only after the match, because Seamus went off and got stitches in his gum after that. And then he came back on and played. You know, you wouldn't catch too many Premier League footballers probably doing that.
Careful now.
But
they're very tough.
He came out, and it was only after the match I heard a report on the radio. Seamus was missing teeth, and just as I was editing after in the car, and I'm looking at going, Jesus, there are his teeth.
His teeth.
You know, his teeth are just smashing into it. And it's like, it's a once, and that's the kind of the cool thrill out of
it. Looks like his nose is broken as well. Like the guard on the helmet is completely flattened against his face.
I don't think and look, come here, he looks grand now anyway, Seamus does.
Yeah, he looks fine again now.
but you don't know, like, the adrenaline probably helped, and, you know, like,
yeah,
I don't know how anybody could play on after that. But look, look, it was a nice picture to get, you know, but it does definitely, you know, kind of show you that, look, the split second is so important in photography. It's like a second or two later, and sure, they're probably all on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, and sure, and the two heads wouldn't be together, and, you know, it's unlucky from Seamus' point of view, but it's lucky from my point of view.
It's a great photo. Where were you though? Just in relation to how you got that, were you using a wide or a long lens? Like, how far away were you? Like,
we would generally sit in the corner, so you'd be.
But where was he though? So he was probably
he would have been on the edge of the square.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So he would have been maybe 50, 60 meters from me. You know, but that's
fair enough, like, to capture that,
that
clarity.
But you know, again, like, I'd be sitting there with the stand in the background, so the stand goes quite dark. So anything that happens,
yes, it's illuminated.
And like, look, that'd be par for the course. We would generally sit in the corner, because you can kind of cover the goal mouth and anything that happens, and you can cover out the field a little bit and whatever. But like, hurling is definitely one of the sports I love photographing. You just capture things, particularly some of the skill. Like last week, it was a Wexford Unleash, and, you know, a fella dispossesses another guy while he's on the run, and you're trying to get, you know, and things like some of the hand-eye coordination and the skill of hurlers at the top level is just fantastic.
Phenomenal. And it is.
A lot of the time you don't see it, like, you think you see it in real life, you go, what happened there? And, you know, as I said, with slow motion on television and stills photography, you can see some of the skill, like, you really catch that, or, you know, did that ball go over the line, or
Did he flick
whatever
that or
happened?
whatever? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's just that's what we go out to do every day, you know, is capture things that people can't see with the naked eye.
Yeah, yeah, and you do a great job of it. Roll it on, routine. What's next? Oh yes.
Katie.
Oh, the London Stadium that was actually an Irish stadium.
Yeah, I don't know where all the
Wow.
Irish people got tickets for.
Oh,
Like,
stop. Yeah.
you know, you were meeting people that you met from home going, what are you doing over here?
Yeah.
Like, it was probably the best Olympics I was at ever. Like I started in Sydney in 2000, and that was my first. So I was probably a bit like looking around an awful lot, but I've done
Yeah.
every game since, and definitely London was one of the best. Probably partially because it was close to home, but
Yeah.
like Katie went in with so much expectation, you know, and like for this particular picture, again, like my colleague Dave Mars ringside there, you know, doing the close up picture, and
Yeah.
you know, I think we all abandoned ship there. Myself, Stephen McCarthy, my colleague, and Dave. We just all went to the arena that day and went, look, this is the only show in town today. Let's
Yeah.
all go down. So we you know, we would have positioned ourselves in certain places, and
So all three of you were there that day.
yeah,
All
yeah,
three of
yeah.
you.
So,
Yeah. That, I
like,
mean, that's how big it was.
yeah, and like I would particularly have, like I was up actually near Jimmy McGee in commentary for this position,
Yeah.
because I knew like my picture wasn't necessarily going to be during the fight, because the other one lad was ringside and one lad was, you know, Stephen was up high shooting the boxing. Now, if I got something, I got something, but I was mainly there kind of to get some sort of standalone kind of picture that gave it a bit of context, because like it's great having Katie with the medal and all that, but you have to tell the whole story, and the fact that like the Irish tricolour is being raised. You've got Katie's face on the screen. You've got the result of it. You know, just move that there a little bit. Like you've got the full, you know, gold, silver. You
The
know, all
weight and
of that
everything. Yeah.
adds to the picture for me. And you know, she's facing the direction of the flag and all that sort of stuff. So that was my standout picture of the day. Because it just, you know exactly what it is. You know when it is. You know, you don't really need an awful lot more in it. To like this, you can see the date on the far side of it, 2012. So it dates it fairly quick, you know. And it was just like, again, she's definitely one of Ireland's greatest athletes.
Yeah, that's
And she's just
another.
so
Yeah,
humble and nice and easy to deal with, and just a lovely all-round person.
it's good to be there like that. No more than Shane Larry. It's nice. Like it's such a privilege to be there to see good people. You know, to see good things happen to good people. And you've been to all of the Olympics since, I assume.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Athens and
yeah.
Beijing.
Are the Olympics? Are they just a different ball game altogether? Because you don't really know where things are going to happen necessarily.
No,
You know.
like the Olympics is it's nearly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week
Yeah.
for 3 weeks. So there's loads of great stuff happens at the Olympics, and you're on a bus, or you're queuing at the bus stop, or you're trying to get lunch at McDonald's because you've got to get a bus in 10 minutes. So you actually, like, I could probably see a review of some Olympics now and go, geez, I don't remember that, and I don't know what happened, and was there a world record there, and look at that great thing. Like, essentially we go to cover the Irish. So you try and get as many athletes as you can. So it means you might be at the boxing for an hour, then you have to go off to rowing, and the rowing is way out there, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and then it's windy, and they push it back, and then it's the next day.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very similar to when we go, actually, because we go just to cover the Irish story.
Yeah. Now there'd be times you might have a couple hours free, and you might go off and into the Greco-Roman wrestling, or I don't know, something else, whatever they have, just to try and get a nice photograph. But the Olympics is by far the hardest event ever to cover. It's just like you get an average of 3-4 hours sleep a night, you know, for 3 weeks. And it's just, you're going on adrenaline, and there's a buzz about it, and you're always chasing the next big picture or the next big moment. And it's over before you know it, but it's only when you start looking back on, that was an important picture. You know, that was an important, then you got the front page of this paper, and then this, you know, but because it's literally moment after moment after moment, day after day after day. They're all good, they're all great, they're all stacked. It's very hard to appreciate it at the time.
Yeah, it's only when you get back. Yeah.
But and there is a great buzz, and like it is the hardest event to work at by a country mile, physically and mentally, and But again, look, come here, people would love to go to one Olympics, you know.
Oh, absolutely. It's
and I
so
get paid
special.
to go, you know,
It's so, and it's particularly these Olympics, assuming they do go ahead, these are, I would argue that you have an even greater responsibility to picture what's happening, because, you know, fans can't go in the same way that we have a greater responsibility to tell the story, because nobody can actually go there. So
and
it's an even more important one.
Like I would know some of the athletes and their families, and you're there nearly going, well, look, you know, I better get something good, even for their sake, you know.
Yeah, a private photo.
Kind of go, look, they can't be there, so look, there's a bit of responsibility of that, but you know, you're out to get good pictures no matter what, and you kind of, a lot of that kind of goes into the back of your mind, because you're just literally, okay, I got to get the next bus, and I got to get to the venue, and I got to do this, that, and the other, and you know, get in the right place and make the capture it and all that.
I'm conscious of time, so is there another photograph there? Do we have another one? Oh yeah, do you know what, I actually wanted to ask you about this for a very specific reason, right? Because, you know, when you're photographing matches, and say there was like, and this isn't a strict spear tackle now or anything, but do you ever get called on by, you know, authorities in sport for evidence of, you know, foul play or, you know, dangerous play?
We would have in the past. Probably not so much now, because at big events there's so many TV cameras and there's slow motion and there's everything else. But there has been occasion in the past, like there would have been one occasion where an Ulster player was allegedly eye gouged by a player from Stade Francais one time, and the man got 50 something weeks ban. And like the picture, actually, our picture by one of the photographers in our place was actually forensically examined by a police lab in the UK and by a police lab, or a lab in France, about being digitally altered, and did we do this and did we do that, and that's where trust comes into, because we don't.
Are you serious?
We don't even, like, we would send the picture so quickly, we don't even have time to be doing that. But the club in Paris challenged the veracity, saying the digital file had been altered, and the lab in England said, well, no, it hasn't. And they go to that type of forensics, you know, because obviously it hadn't been seen by the TV cameras, and it was such a heavy sanction. Now, thankfully, it doesn't happen that often, you know, because there's not that level of foul play. Like, you know, a lot of it is you know, depending on the rules nowadays, but you don't catch much gouging now in rugby anymore.
And also, you know, they generally have the TV cameras on it. They generally don't.
But you're out there, you're not necessarily worried about what the authorities, you know, that's up to them.
Of course,
no,
I just wondered, had they ever come to you for evidence?
There were one or two occasions.
That's interesting.
But there is certain sports that go, well, we can't necessarily rely on a still, because it's only a still image of the moment. You know, and it doesn't. So they would prefer to rely on video, because it might show before and after. Now, while we might have the stills to show before and after, it's not the same as like we might have.
Of course not. Yeah, I know.
Stills, and you could run it through like a slow motion video, but they would much rather use video for things like that, because I suppose it's very hard to argue against what's on the video.
You know? Is that the last photo? I think it might be. Yeah. So to finish up, like, that's all fascinating, and like we could actually have gone through so many more photographs, but I just wanted to have a little snippet of, you know, different sports and different like instances of how you capture what's going on around you. If you had, you know, parting words of wisdom for, you know, the 12-year-old photographers down in Tralee who are, you know, traveling around to matches with their camera, or the 20-year-olds or the 40-year-olds, or, you know, somebody who wants to get into sports photography, what is the most important thing that you think they can, you know, do or think about doing?
Well, don't be afraid to take pictures. Just take them, like, because you can't kind of go, oh, I don't know if I'll take a picture of that, because then the moment's gone. You know, and that applies to any photography. You know, if people are a bit conscious about, oh yeah, I don't know if I'll take a picture of that. No, you know, in your own life, you kind of, like, you know, people that have kids and whatnot, like, if you don't take your picture of your kid growing up, you won't have it, you know. And it's great to look back on. Like, the kids of today are probably regretting the fact that their parents have camera phones, because there's all sorts of embarrassing things going around on iCloud and whatnot. But just like, and it's funny, people think the big gigs are glamorous. They're actually not. It's much better pictures and much better situations and scenarios and things happen at smaller sports, and you've got far more access. So be worried about people going, oh, I'd like to be at the big match. I'd actually prefer to be at a smaller match.
Yeah, plus if you go to enough small matches, you'll get to a big match.
Yeah, you will. But you'll see better moments and more unguarded moments at smaller events.
Absolutely.
Or whatever, amateur leagues or whatever. Like, they're full of moments, but nobody's there to capture them.
Yeah. Oh, Brendan, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. And so visual as well. It's, it's the only chat I've done so far where I've been able to actually, you couldn't talk to a photographer without putting up all the photographs. It was a great way to do it. And thank you so much for organizing that, because it made a huge difference. So your advice is go take the photo. I love that advice.
Yeah, go take it. There's pictures happen every minute of the day.
I know. Brendan, thank you so much for joining me on Life in Sport, and I will talk to you soon.
Go ahead. Thanks, Evanne. Bye now.